There's been a couple brand new big reports online, some from very mainstream sources around Nintendo Switch 2, one of them having to deal with the type of chipset we should expect in this console when it does finally get revealed and launched, and the other having to do with a feature that I'm sure many of you want, and I know I certainly want to be included in Nintendo's next generation console. And so we're going to unpack all of those details. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Summer Nation if you're new here. And we have to first discuss a Reuters report having to do with a custom Nvidia chipset being claimed to be in Nintendo's next generation console. Now, you may be familiar with a bunch of different Nvidia leaks over the course of time. We kind of knew that they would likely be the partner that Nintendo would go with for the next generation console chipset, not just because of the incredible success that was Nintendo Switch 1 that we're playing and enjoying today with the Tegra X1, but also Nvidia had a massive data leak that happened, I think a year or two back now at this point, and there were some key files that were revealed within that data leak that cited things like a T239 Nvidia chip linked to a folder called NVN2, and that is a big deal because NVN was actually the folder used internally from Nvidia when referencing the development of the current Nintendo Switch. So NVN2 logically would be something that they are working on behind the scenes for Nintendo's next gen console. Well, now knowing that information, you can see the following article posted up over on VGC, which reads, Switch 2 will reportedly feature a custom Nvidia chip. The new console is expected to launch this year. That's according to Reuters, which is reporting that the Japanese console giant will implement a custom Nvidia chip to power the new console. According to a source with knowledge of Nvidia's plans, Nintendo's current Switch handheld console already includes Nvidia's Tegra X1 chip. It continues, a new version of the Nintendo Switch console expected this year is likely to include a Nvidia custom design. Nintendo declined Reuters' request for comment. It was previously speculated that Nintendo would use an off-the-shelf chip for its next console. However, if Reuters' report is accurate, that appears not to be the case. So unfortunately, with the claim of it being a custom chipset, we really don't have anything to go off of on this report with specs and things. But if you're questioning just how reputable Reuters is, this is not some kind of Twitter user account online that's just going to make wild claims. This is one of those mainstream news outlet sites that many investors read and go to for information on things in inner workings within companies. It's like a Bloomberg style website. So you don't just want to write them off as somebody who's saying, oh, they had a source tell them this, and then they went and made it up online. This source that they are not disclosing, it would not just pull out of thin air, then publish this article, then turn around and actually ask Nintendo for a comment on it. So there is a big reputation on the line here, and Reuters going out and claiming this, I think, should somewhat put our expectations in the direction of Nintendo using a custom Nvidia chip, and that's going to be a good thing for Nintendo's own business standpoint. I believe that's going to make it a lot harder to hack. You probably know with the Tegra X1, which was already a essentially off-the-shelf chip, something that was being used in other devices, it really gave that open window for people to dive in and figure out how to hack the Switch and run emulators on it and things like that and put custom software on there. That could indeed make it just a little bit harder to do that with their next console. And it's also really good to see Nintendo and Nvidia's partnership potentially getting that much more intertwined, because they can ask for specific things that they know will help run their games more effectively when it comes to how they develop games for this next gen hardware and the resources that they want to use from any said chipset. And we also know that Nvidia is leading the charge with AI on chipsets right now, and that's going to be a key feature for Nintendo as they transition to this next generation hardware, because when you're talking about something that is such a small form factor like we are expecting to see from the future hybrid iteration of the Nintendo Switch 2, you can't have something the size of a PlayStation 5 or Xbox Series X that's going to be running a much bigger chip with much more cooling power. It's just not possible in a portable form factor. Although, if the rumors are true that it is indeed an 8-inch LCD display that we should expect, it will indeed give this device a bigger footprint than we have for the Switch or Switch OLED currently, which will definitely be something that helps Nintendo achieve better cooling and potentially higher clock speeds and things like that. But at the same time, AI is going to be a key feature. Things like DLSS, frame generation, potentially ray tracing, ray reconstruction, all of that stuff that they're going to have at their disposal with Nvidia as a partner to make these games look and run as incredible as ever, like the claims that we saw with Breath of the Wild potentially running in 4K with virtually no load times, and the Matrix Awakening demo arguably looking more impressive than when they were showed off on things like the PS5 from at least a ray tracing perspective. Those are the reports from Gamescom 2023. So all of that is clearly very exciting. Now, that is not where the Switch 2 news ends today, though, because we also have yet another rumor coming from, I would say, a somewhat credible source, but I am not going to say that they are nearly as reliable as some of the other names we talk about on the channel, although one of the names that you're probably familiar with, Nate the Hate, is more or less backing this feature, and it has to do with backwards compatibility and the expectation that it will be included on Nintendo's next-gen console. But not only can we play Nintendo Switch games via backwards compatibility with this console, but the claim is that we may indeed also be able to expect things like upgraded performance from our existing Switch games. Now, how Nintendo gets there will be a very big topic we will deep dive in a moment, but I want to first start off by hopping over to Nintendo Everything, where you can see the following article typed up, which reads, "Rumors, Switch 2 to supply physical and digital backwards compatibility. Games can be enhanced." Rumors about Switch 2 continue. A new report claims to have insight into backwards compatibility. Tidbits were relayed by Universo Nintendo, an outlet that has been accurate with Nintendo Directs and shared the name of Sonic X Shadow Generations before its reveal via Portuguese podcast X Do Control by PH Brazil. The new device will supposedly be fully backwards compatibility, meaning both physically and digitally. Games made for the current Switch should work on the system's successor. Something else being thrown around is that games made for the original Switch could see a boost on the next console. It'll be up to developers to take advantage of the added processing power. The current Switch is in no way backwards compatible with prior Nintendo hardware. However, that was a bit of a break for the company. Nintendo has a long history offering backwards compatibility, such as Game Boy and Game Boy Color support on the GBA, playable DS titles on 3DS, GameCube support on Wii, and Wii support on Wii U. We have a few other details unrelated to backwards compatibility as well. We're apparently looking at a March reveal for Switch 2. In the meantime, there could be a Nintendo Direct next week, and it might be a partner showcase, while a Pokemon presentation is rumored for this month as well. This isn't too surprising given Pokemon Day is just on the horizon. Now, to then clarify Nate's comments on how it kind of lines up with this rumor that we are going over, he says the following over on Reset Era: "Backcompat is present to partners and testing is underway. The major unknown seems to be the extent any such enhancements may provide." So my takeaway from all of this personally is that I think we can safely set our expectations that at the bare minimum, some form of backwards compatibility will indeed be included in this console. If you unpack it just from a business perspective, it makes logical sense. You have evergreen titles on the Nintendo Switch that continue to sell incredibly well in the 7th year of sales. I mean, we're starting the 8th year in March 2024, as it will have completed 7 full years as of March 2024, and the software is actually what's primarily carrying Nintendo's profitability right now as we speak, as we see the system sales naturally decline at this point in a console's life cycle. You're telling me that Nintendo, knowing that they have a billion plus pieces of software that have successfully sold on their current gen console, they just want to stop the sales of those on the next gen, or maybe remaster and port a lot of them as we historically see them do? That's one strategy to go with, and it definitely would make them some additional revenue. But I also think that Nintendo knows that they can continue to appeal to a broader audience with this next gen console, get some first time Nintendo Switch adopters that did not pick up the original Switch with the Switch 2, mainly due to things like it maybe having a much more robust third party lineup, since it's going to be a much more powerful piece of tech. And now you have an entire back catalog of Nintendo Switch 1 games that you would potentially go buy at full price, unless if they discount them. We're still paying $60 full retail for Breath of the Wild, literally the launch game, the big first party title that launched the Nintendo Switch, is still $60 MSRP unless you find it on a sale. So let that sink in for a second. Nintendo has a ton of money to make off of their backwards library, but the big question, and what still seems to be unanswered amongst all of these new reports with backwards compatibility, has to do with how much of an enhancement to the games we might actually see them include, and would Nintendo charge for something like an enhancement? It's not just something that is going to easily be 4K Breath of the Wild with no work put in, the developers would have to go back and make that an option to upscale the resolution and to have it run at that higher resolution and to eliminate load times. It has to know how to use the new hardware in order to do that. So would Nintendo go the Sony route and maybe charge like a $10 upgrade fee in order to get the better performance of the games? Or would you potentially see re-releases and something like Breath of the Wild 4K is actually a $60 MSRP game that Nintendo launches for Switch 2 with Switch 2 box art and all of that, and you literally have to rebuy the game in order to take advantage of the visual enhancements? I don't know which route they'll go. The $10 upgrade fee seems like a weird path for Nintendo. Maybe they would do some of their large library of first-party games for free, and then in certain situations where they really want to remake or remaster a game or give it a bigger, more noticeable hardware enhancement, maybe we do see them re-release select titles. We've also had things like the Ubisoft CEO literally commenting on backwards compatibility, more or less insinuating that they're just going to update Mario Sparks of Hope and continue to try to sell it on the next-gen console because it kind of underwhelmed their sales expectations on the current console due to it likely being too similar to the original Mario vs. Rabbids that released, and they think they should have done it one per console generation. All of that said, it's been hinted towards that with things like Nintendo Account, we should expect our eShop purchases to transfer over. We're expecting likely a slightly different shaped cartridge slot to potentially be in this Nintendo Switch 2, and maybe it's like a DS to 3DS situation where with the 3DS cartridge slot you have a different looking cartridge, but you can still just pop in your DS cartridge and have it work just the same. That's kind of what I'm expecting, but between comments from CEOs of big publishers insinuating that backwards compatibility can be done, and now we're seeing all of these rumors and reports from multiple different sources, including names like Nate the Hate saying that backwards compat is something that people have access to right now as part of these theoretical Switch 2 dev kits. It sounds like that part is at least expected to be included, and let's hope that for the big games like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Smash Bros, amongst many others, maybe we get those running at 4K with backwards compatibility when docked in via DLSS and upgrades and things like that with the new generation hardware. That would be a very big win in my opinion, but we will have to wait and see for all of that. That's really where I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, your personal thoughts and opinions on both these different reports with the claims that Nintendo is once again choosing Nvidia and specifically a custom chip from them. Do you think this is good news? Do you think it's pretty obvious that that was indeed going to be the path that Nintendo went? And when it comes to backwards compatibility, do you think it's all but confirmed at this point and we should indeed expect to have it as a feature within the Nintendo Switch 2? What games would you most like to see fully enhanced or given the ability to run better and look better with a better frame rate on Nintendo's next-gen hardware? And lastly, do you think Nintendo would charge for set upgrades? Maybe the $10 route, kind of like what Sony is doing? Or do you think this would be something that's included as just a free upgrade because you got their new console? Or does Nintendo go the route of individually re-releasing some of these select titles at a full price MSRP? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch the video on screen next if you haven't already. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.